All right. I think we're live. Yes, we are. All right. Hello, Flat Earth researchers, debaters, and debunkers. Nick Davies here, Phuket Word. From Phuket in southern Thailand. Hope you're having a good weekend yourself. It's Sunday evening here. It's been a hearty day in the garden, cleaning things up, digging holes, planting stuff, nicking plants from the pond and bringing them here. Chilster, hello. Zoo Scott, hi. Brian, hello there. Everything okay? Can you hear me? All right. Yeah, hope you're having a good weekend, all of you. And Brian, okay. Someone just tell me sound is okay or something like that. Slow mode's on, so there's a 10-second delay between thingies. Okay, Vaulted Dome, hello. Yes, thank you very much. Brian? All right. Yeah, let's start off this. One thing you can think about with life, the life on Earth, the life that we're born into, is variety is the spice of life, right? I mean, surely we should celebrate everyone's uniqueness. Each individual has something unique to offer, something to bring to a meeting of minds or bodies, collaboration, all these things, trade, business, education, the whole lot. It takes all sorts, right? Wouldn't it be how we wouldn't get anywhere, we wouldn't advance if everyone was the same, if everyone was identified as being clever in certain ways, or I'm sure a lot of you have researched IQ tests, and we know that it doesn't cover every aspect of life, and it can be a cultural thing as well, because a lot might depend on just what you've been brought up with, yeah. And we'll look into that. And of course, a lot of the time we get told that, flat earthers are stupid. It's just an assumption that people make. You've got to be stupid to think the earth is flat. But why would you think you're smart to believe that you live on the outside of a spinning ball when it goes against all our reasoning, all our experience, everything, even engineering, flying? Why would you believe? Well, part of the thing is, because we're taught that we're smart to make these connections of, we talked about it before, indirect evidence, or evidence that seems to kind of, breadcrumbs that seem to kind of we can put together, use our intelligence, use our imagination, use concepts, use mathematics to create this abstract world in which everything would appear to make sense, because maths just does, right? If it doesn't make sense, you can tell. So yeah, you need people with advanced mathematical abilities to do certain things. I wouldn't know how to program a computer, but then a computer programmer might not be able to play music or communicate with someone on a more personal level. It all depends, yeah. There's so many factors that are incorporated, yeah. So that's the way I look at this whole thing, especially, that's what's so exhilarating about flat earth research or just truth seeking, because there are so many people out there with so many different experiences and something original and unique to bring to the table. Sometimes it becomes trendy to say, oh, you can't have an original thought. Well, maybe not, but you can certainly have thoughts that other people are incapable of. You can certainly see things, and that can be based on experience or your own knowledge, your own thirst for knowledge. Yeah. And there's no doubt that a truth seeker has an insatiable thirst for knowledge. You want to know. Yeah. And of course, just like any other creature, we'll take the easy way out if we can. We all do. You can be smart about your laziness as well, can't you? Yeah. But that can also be a downfall. And of course, yeah. So with the whole globe belief and a lot of beliefs, yeah, you kind of, the mind is encouraged to make connections, but no solid proof is there. Nothing that is so simple. Nothing's as simple as a measure of curvature, a fundamental foundation of any further assumptions about where we live. I mean, even if we hadn't, even if we'd explored only a part of it, why would we assume it's a ball? No one ever measured curvature, this fundamental thing that we need. Yeah? If there's anything else that you do, okay, you might be an aircraft engineer or a pilot. What is the proof in the pudding? The aircraft flies. It does what it says it's supposed to do. Yeah? Whatever. Yeah? You get the idea. But the globe is the only thing where we have to, or any model really, but especially the globe is the only so-called science where we have to just totally imagine and interpret mathematical models. Yeah? So sure, it takes a certain amount of acumen, a certain amount of focus, yeah, to come up with a model, to do certain mathematical calculations, maybe. Especially when it comes to spheres. Most of us can handle two-dimensional geometry, trigonometry. We can do that kind of stuff. If we don't really need it, or we don't have a real passion for it, then we might kind of force ourselves through it, but we're all capable of making. Most of us are capable of making kind of mathematical equations and going through certain processes, and they become very repetitive as well. Once you grab the formula, then you can work things out. Yeah. So of course, some people are much better at it than others, and of course those people who are good at it will get frustrated, maybe that they can't understand how certain things might not be clear to other people. Yeah. So this is kind of leading on to what I really wanted to harp on about here. Just to start with this, I mean, we had this news recently. The Prime Minister of the UK, Rishi Sunak, has a vision to make sure that everybody has the chance to learn mathematics until 18. Of course, some stories have come out that they're going to force mathematics on you until you're 18. I think it's probably going to be a little bit tamer than that. The options will be there and what have you. Okay, but maybe there is a deficit, but. Now, you might immediately think that this is going to replace things, whatever. I mean, I'm not really fussed about the politics. It's just a way to kind of introduce what we're going to talk about, really. What if there was this greater focus on mathematics than other subjects, if they were put by the wayside or left or not focused on? Then would that solve all the world's problems? Would that help people coming out of college and uni? Of course, this might help people get more jobs, but there are still going to be plenty of jobs that don't need mathematics, and from his perspective as possibly a mathematician, maybe he does see an importance, but that's his perspective, and maybe he would not see some of the other things that would be important. And this is a massive part of it, isn't it? The ability to see things from other people's perspectives, to understand as well that we are in a world of people, because we're all different, because we're all unique. You will come across people that you don't get their mindset. It's chalk and cheese. It's a stark contrast from your own. I remember meeting a lawyer once in some condo, and he was talking about chopping down trees and kicking someone's dog, and there was a couple of things he said in this very short meeting that I had with him that told me, he lacked that kind of compassion for nature, an understanding of animals and animal owners, and very much from just everything from his own perspective, couldn't understand that other people might be affected in different ways about his own actions. So it's just from a personal example of an extreme case of someone who might have been very clever at his job, but maybe on other aspects were not so. There was a deficit in other aspects of his personality. So of course it's very difficult to grasp, to accept that there are evil people in the world. There are people that will do evil things. They will. That's probably one of the things. If you are a flat earther with a channel, you will have come across that. I was personally naive a little bit, I suppose, at the beginning, thinking that these revelations would be warmly welcomed and enthusiastically pursued. But no, the first thing you get is people telling you how stupid you are, how crazy you are. Didn't you go to school? Don't you understand science? You can't do math. You have a Dyscalculia. That's Dyscalculia is one I've heard. And, so of course, people that have the ability to do mathematical equations easily and process these things, often it comes with a bit of OCD as well. There's a bit of compulsive order. There's a love of circles. I remember one guy called Fived Pairs, I think it was, and he was just so angry at flat earthers, and he would draw these perfect circles. I think he was a mathematics teacher, but the resentment and anger he had for destroying his perfect world of circles and geometry, was quite astounding. And personally, it's always been about it's always been wanting to share this. I was never expecting so much hate, but now I understand. Now I get it. I mean, and it's all part of the learning process, right? You become exposed throughout your life to more and more varieties of people, and they do different things. To annoy you, to upset you, to astound you. So, hi, good to see so many people in the chat. Thanks a lot for coming along. Hello there, Nachiketa, One Man, hello, David Banner, hello, Jay Stokes, who else we got here? All right, a whole swath of people, good to see you. Bristolian, hello. All right, mate. All right, Chilster. Yes, I agree with you, Chilster. We're all good at something. This is it, and that's the way we operate, right? I mean, you look at a community. We all have a different skill to bring to the table, and that's fantastic. That's what's really wonderful. So, again, to me, it's always been about let's share this. Let's make progress. Let's learn from each other. We are all each other's teachers, right? But of course, a lot of the time you end up with people that can't get off their high horse. They can't come down off their high horse enough to be on the same level with you, or appreciate that they might have something to learn from you as well as you learning something from them. You know, it can be mutual. I've learned a lot from the Globers, the two people defending their belief. I've learned a lot about all sorts of things: physics, mathematics, navigation, aviation. Just people in general. It's fantastic. So, yeah, and that's why I've never really kind of joined any camps or groups. I'd love to just kind of collaborate rather than have conflict. That's my goal. Yeah. Let's just quickly look at Dyscalculia, which is something I've been accused of having, and it's basically a disability resulting in difficulty learning or comprehending arithmetic, such as difficulty in understanding numbers, learning how to manipulate numbers, performing mathematical calculations, and learning facts in mathematics. It is sometimes colloquially referred to as math dyslexia, though this analogy is misleading as they are distinct syndromes. Okay, so this is quite it's quite a heavy one, I suppose. Let's just read on quickly. Dyscalculia is associated with dysfunction in the region around the interparietal sulcus. I'm not ashamed that I don't know that word, parietal sulcus. Okay, part of the brain, and potentially also the frontal lobe. I know that one from, and that's, it wasn't so long ago that they were giving people lobotomies. That was science, yeah? So, dyscalculia does not reflect a general deficit in cognitive abilities or difficulties with time, measurement, and spatial reasoning. Estimates of the prevalence of dyscalculia range between 3 and 6% of the population. In 2015, it was established that 11% of children with dyscalculia also have ADHD. Dyscalculia has also been associated with Turner syndrome and people who have spina bifida. Mathematical difficulties can occur as a result of some types of brain injury, in which case the term acalculia is used instead of dyscalculia, which is of innate, genetic, or developmental origin. Okay, so here are just some of the difficulties we can highlight here. Visualizing numbers as meaningless or nonsensical symbols rather than as characters indicating a numerical value. Seemingly careless mistakes in arithmetic, operations, addition, subtraction, multiplication, ability to grasp math on a conceptual level, but an inability to put those concepts into practice. What would that mean? Putting it into paper, forming equations, difficulty recalling the names of numbers or thinking that different numbers feel the same, e.g. interchanging the same two numbers for each other when reading or recalling them. So yeah, this does become kind of, if you're accusing someone of having dyscalculia, I mean, you're talking about quite a severe disability, I suppose. A warped sense of spatial awareness and trouble understanding shapes, distance, or volume. Difficulty with time, directions, recalling schedules, sequences of events, and or financial planning. Inability to grasp and remember mathematical concepts, rules, and formula. Inability to concentrate on mentally intensive tasks. Poor name face retrieval. May substitute names beginning with the same letter. Okay, and anxiety when faced with tasks dealing with mathematics. Okay, so I could happily cross off quite a few of those on the list. And know that I'm not really suffering from dyscalculia. And if anyone accuses you of that just because they have the mental capacity to do the spherical geometry or the sines and cosines for trig or whatever they want to do to imagineer their globe belief, doesn't really matter. You know, it's you're probably not as bad as a lot of these things say. Yeah. So and this isn't necessarily the be all and end all of it either, because we have this is the one I wanted to get to really. Dysrationalia. I've said it enough times on my own, couldn't get it out the first time then. Dysrationalia. Okay. And it is defined as the inability to think and behave rationally despite adequate intelligence. It is a concept in educational psychology and is not a clinical disorder, such as a thought disorder, or possibly what we talked about just now with Dyscalculia. You could possibly call that a clinical disorder because it's affecting the brain. This is something more to do with, it's a form of intelligence, or maybe more of a trait in one's own constitution, and the things that make you tick. So Dysrationalia can be a resource to help explain why smart people fall for Ponzi schemes and other fraudulent encounters. So think about that. You know, you've got a lot of people that assume they are intelligent. They might have a high IQ. They might be good at mathematics. They might understand world economics or orbital mechanics or quantum theory. But does that, these kind of people will still fall for things that may grab them on an emotional level. It could be a gold digging partner. It could be a Ponzi scheme, and of course, understanding that the financial system is a complete fabrication is one of the steps that many of us truth seekers, or one of possibly the first steps that many of us kind of truth seekers took, and it's quite a revelation on its own when you realize the way everything is manipulated. It's just numbers on screens, and if you've been very focused on money and material wealth, that might be a difficult pill to swallow, and you might not ever go even you might not even take that first step to understanding the monetary system as being a kind of debt slavery system. You can say money is the root of all evil. We've all got to work. That's another point I would love to make another video on, actually. But as it's come up, a lot of people say, "Oh, so the Earth's flat. What difference does it make? I've still got to get up for work in the morning." Well, yeah, every single living creature, from plants to birds and animals and humans and fish, we all have to work. Yeah, we get up and we have to find food. Yeah, and we've got to feed our families. We all have to work. Everyone has to do work in order to survive, and might be from a very early age until the day you die. And you can't work. If you can't work anymore, most of the time you're just left out to dry and die. Yeah. So the difference is, though, that you become free of all the trappings, all the mindset that has you assuming that there are only certain ways of making a living, or surviving. Possibly ignoring your own true course because you've put yourself into this compartmentalized thing of having a certain education and going through all these steps to get to a certain point, and you're chasing that dream until all of a sudden you're past it and real life has just whizzed by. I got a friend who's kind of it happens a lot with Thai people, actually, is that often the children will get left at home with the grandparents or the extended family, while the parents go off to work, or often a single parent goes off to work. And of course they kind of have to, or at least there's there's this idea that I've got to earn money. I've got to so I can give my kid a good life, give them an education, feed them, clothe them, and all that stuff. But ultimately, what happens is you don't have a proper relationship with your own children. You're off earning the money for them to support them, to feed them and stuff. But that's something they might need to an extent, but there's a whole lot of other stuff that they need as children: guidance, comfort, trust. All these things. If you put business meetings over your kids, or you don't have a schedule, or things like that, all sorts of things can happen. All sorts of things can create wedges. So just this guy at my work, he sees myself and my daughter interacting, and he says he hasn't really seen his daughter. They've been separate for years because he's been working, she's been studying, she's been up home, and so he's kind of, I don't want to use the word jealous. He's not really jealous, but he pointed it out. It's like, you've got a much more nurtured relationship with your own child, whereas I don't know my own daughter, because I've been just, and he, in some ways, he wishes he could turn back time and maybe, suffer some of the things that, maybe have less material things, but have more time with the people that really matter. Let me just take a break there, have a look at the chat. How are we doing? Sorry, I'm just I'm kind of between these things. Okay. Oh, hello, CC. Good to see you, my man. Yeah, I loved your point about the diesel engines, Chris. That's funny how they're taking away diesel engines, but because you can burn cooking oil on them and things like that. Or you can do that kind of thing. Love Kung Fu. Hello. All right. Just see where we're going. David Banner, hello there. Amish did an interview with Eric. Anyone see it? Okay, not sure. The Bristolian, but maths haven't been around for long, a few thousand years. Yeah. That's true. Yeah, I mean, I suppose that's part of the heliocentric model, isn't it? There was this... man, has that changed yet? Okay. Should be there. Okay. Can't remember. The whole kind of Euclidean, non-Euclidean thing. I mean, these mathematicians and their egos, just like the scientists and their so-called discoveries and things. They want to dominate the world, with their own world, So that might be part of this understanding geometry might be a big part of kind of bring. Okay, let's make the Earth a globe, because we can, and of course you can do all sorts of things with it. It's unlike a cube. You have with a cube or something, you have edges, or even with a level Earth, you have. If you have to have boundaries, right? But then if you have boundaries, then nothing is even. A sphere makes perfect sense in terms of talking about gravity and all these other kinds of things that just kind of make a smooth transition. There's no edges, there's no corners, there's no turns that would put the center further, the edge further away from the center in some cases. Whereas with a circle, of course, you can do that. And then we've talked about it before, where you just with a circle, you can turn everything into degrees, 360 degrees, and then your time is degrees, and your distances are turned into degrees, and away you go. Nachiketa, I have to make sure my children are properly indoctrinated. I spent quality time with them. I can't go and make toilet paper, Monopoly money, and pay my taxes. That would go towards war, Yeah, good point. Hello, Al. Good to see you, my man. All right. Okay, I'm down at the bottom now. What's that? The Bristolian? 3, 4, 5 is all we need for the 90 degrees. Really simple math. It's all that's required. Yeah. Actually, the globe math isn't that kind of difficult, really, is it? It's just it's the way it's interpreted. Yeah. So I'm looking at the stream. I'm quite far behind, I think, on the stream here. I'm not sure. The stream I'm looking at, maybe it's just not updating so much. I'm not sure. Okay. Okay. Now I see the wiki page come up. All right then. So I'll just carry on. I'll either get distracted with and think we're all somewhere behind. Okay. The concept of Dysrationalia was first proposed by psychologist Keith Stanovich in the early 1900s. Stanovich originally classified Dysrationalia as a learning disability and characterized it as a difficulty in belief formation, in assessing belief consistency, or in the determination of action to achieve one's goals. However, special education researcher Kenneth Cavell, or Cavell, I'm not sure, noted that Dysrationalia may be more aptly categorized as a thinking disorder rather than a learning disability, because it does not have a direct impact on academic performance. Okay. Psychologist Robert Sternberg argued that the construct of Dysrationalia needed to be a better conceptualized since it lacked theoretical framework explaining why people are dysrational and how they become this way, and operationalization, how Dysrationalia could be measured. Sternberg also noted that the concept had the potential for misuse, as one may label another as dysrational simply because he or she does not agree with the other person's view. I'm afraid, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to bother with the quotes there. Okay, there's some other things called mindware. Actually, there's a kind of better article, which I'll skip to here in the Scientific American, okay, which kind of really summarizes in this bit here what we've been talking about. Who are you calling smart? Traditional IQ tests miss some of the most important aspects of real-world decision-making. It is important to test high in IQ, yet to it is possible, it's important to be able to read, isn't it? It is possible to test high in IQ, yet to suffer from the logical thought defect known as Dysrationalia. Okay? So you can see where maybe I'm going here is that you might well have these high IQ individuals who believe they live on the outside of a spinning ball, and they get a lot of academic support and pats on the back and all that kind of thing to keep their egos inflated somewhat, yet they may be lacking in the ability to actually use discernment in the real world, based on this kind of they might have this particular defect, Dysrationalia. And one cause of Dysrationalia is that people tend to be cognitive misers. I like that phrase, cognitive misers. Okay, it basically means lazy, but we'll get into it. Meaning that they take the easy way out when trying to solve problems, often leading to solutions that are wrong. Okay, so that's where we talked about kind of, we take the easy option. Yeah, that's just a human trait. So it's easy to believe what you're told, right? That's the easiest option. Yeah, just to kind of accept that. Okay, if you don't, because if someone else has done the thinking for you, and especially if you can kind of, okay, I can repeat that. I can think about the planets and their distances and their sizes and mass, and I can do the calculations, and that makes sense to me because they've already calculated this model. Yeah. But you would get that sense of security, and you wouldn't really question it. Maybe you'd have things solidified then, and that would create an inability or a Dysrationalia in actually looking at the problem and trying to solve it in a way that you might not be used to. All right. Another cause of Dysrationalia is the mindware gap, which occurs when people lack the specific knowledge, rules, and strategies needed to think rationally. And this, I think, it's really important as well that this is missing. You know, when we're talking about Rishi Sunak just now, all right, you're focusing on maths and these other skills, but in school, are they teaching you rational thinking? Are they teaching you actual scientific thinking? Because scientific thinking and rational thinking would be, you know, I think you can kind of put those together, couldn't you? Yeah. Bringing lots of elements, thinking about many things at the same time, tying things in together. That doesn't necessarily mean to kind of, you know, create these imaginary, join these imaginary dots, but actually have the ability to recognize and bring them in, evaluate them, and see whether they are a part of the puzzle or not, or if they are just a distraction. You know, if you're a flat earther, you're totally used to this thinking. You've already evaluated your own thought process. You've watched your thought process, so you know you have that sense of awareness that someone who believes they're smart because they can take all those clues and evidence that we live on a globe and assume that it must be true because they're smart enough to think of it, or they're smart enough to do the mathematics. Yeah. And lastly, tests do exist that can measure Dysrationalia, and they should be given more often to pick up the deficiencies that IQ tests miss. Okay, so again, just, you know, to hammer home that point that, you know, here we have the scientific community, experts in intelligence that, you know, understand and they realize and they accept that IQ tests are kind of just for a certain form of intelligence, whereas there are many forms of intelligence that comprise the human being. So let's just read on here. No doubt you will know several folks with perfectly respectable IQs who repeatedly make poor decisions. The behavior of such people tells us that we are missing something important by treating intelligence as if it encompassed all cognitive abilities. I coined the term Dysrationalia, meaning the inability to think and behave rationally despite having adequate intelligence, to draw attention to the large domain of cognitive life that intelligence tests fail to assess. Although most people recognize that IQ tests do not measure every important mental faculty, we behave as if they do. We have an implicit assumption that intelligence and rationality go together, or else why would we be so surprised when smart people do foolish things? Yeah. And I think, you know, when you see, when you see people just kind of, you know, being short-sighted in the consequences of their actions. You know, it could be something, but it could be. There's no need to give examples, but yeah, if you sometimes you have the chance. Well, every time you have an interaction, you know, you have a chance to just step back and think about the consequences, think about the possibilities. You know, how could this go? What consequences, what good things will this actually do for me? What bad things would this do for me? You can never really predict what will actually happen in any given situation, but, you know, you can at least, you know, a certain reaction or non-reaction might be better than a certain reaction at times. Yeah. And it says here, it is useful to get a handle on Dysrationalia and its causes because we are best beset by problems that require increasingly more accurate rational responses. In the 21st century, shallow processing can lead physicians to choose less effective medical treatments, can cause people to fail to adequately assess risks in their environment, can lead to the misuse of information in legal proceedings, and can make parents resist vaccinating their children. Okay, I agreed with all of that, but yeah, obviously, you know, this is a mainstream article that we're talking about here. We're looking at here. Okay, so. Millions of dollars are spent on unneeded projects by government and private industry when decision makers are dysrationalic. Okay, billions are wasted on quack remedies. Unnecessary surgery is performed. Now, if you just take all of those and apply them to the past 2-3 years, and all the suggestions and the persuasions and the insistences and the collaboration between pharmaceutical corporations and government and other people with all their vested interests, and of course the masses that went along with it and had this picture put into their mind, and then were shepherded into behaving in a particular way. Yeah. Oh, excuse me. Helps keep the throat dry. IQ tests do not measure dysrationalia, but as I show in my 2010 book, What Intelligence Tests Miss, the Psychology of Rational Thought, there are ways to measure dysrationalia and ways to correct it. Decades of research in cognitive psychology have suggested two causes of dysrationalia. One is a processing problem, the other a content problem. Much is known about both of them. Okay, so hopefully this is, I find this interesting, for me it's this is the kind of content, but condensed and boiled down, that I want to put into the book that I am kind of putting together. So for me, it's more about understanding that the mental process, and hopefully, because really, isn't this whole thing about recognizing your own mindset? It's easy to see other people. It's easy to go, okay, he's like this, she's like that, and him, they, there, were, is like that. Yeah, but what about ourselves? Yeah, what about ourselves? How often do you actually watch yourself thinking? Most of the time we're pretty much wrapped up in thought. Sure, we might do things impulsively, but that's without awareness, I think, a lot of the time. Yeah, so you've got these impulses or behaviors which are pretty much programmed responses, so they're kind of automatic. You don't think about them at all. There are thought processes that also go on, but that's kind of part of the programming, and we get carried along with them. You could be thinking about something, got a whole story going on in your mind, and you're just going with the story. You might be driving along at the same time and doing that, but then there's another aspect that you could be watching yourself, observing yourself, thinking, and then so you, that's another level of control. That's another level of awareness. You're aware of what's actually going on in the mind and how thoughts are affecting you, and then you can start to think about whether you should be having those thoughts, or why you have those thoughts. Yeah, this is all part of the journey. On the base level we have the body, and then we have the mind, and then we have the spirit. So it's a spirit with a mind and a body, rather than we look at it as a body, mind, spirit. But actually, why don't we think of it as being the spirit that has occupied a mind, and that is in a body, or not necessarily in a body, but it's there, and it has that connection to the body. So the mind-body thing is often just doing its own thing, and we're unaware of what we're actually doing. But then the spirit can be observing the mind-body relationship. Yeah, and the spirit, you can also be observing the spirit. There's a lot of levels of observation, I suppose. Yeah, and so there's that kind of there's consciousness or awareness of all three of those, and observing all three of them at the same time. That's quite fascinating, really. Right, the case of the cognitive miser. The processing problem comes about because we tend to be cognitive misers. When approaching a problem, we can choose from any of several cognitive mechanisms. Some mechanisms have great computational power, letting us solve many problems with great accuracy, but they are slow. Require much concentration, and can interfere with other cognitive tasks. Others are comparatively low in computational power, but they are fast, require little concentration, and do not interfere with our other ongoing cognition. Humans are cognitive misers because of our basic tendency to default to the processing mechanisms that require less computational effort, even when they are less accurate. Excuse me. All right then, I've got my little whiteboard ready for this one. You might have heard of this problem, but to be honest, it was the first one for me. Went through this, tried it, and yeah, I was just your average lazy problem solver. But also aware that, that's not, when it comes to the scientific approach and where we are and things like that, then there is a definite sharp focus and persistence in trying to arrive at some answers. So you see how, you'll probably relate to this, yeah? So are you a cognitive miser? Considering the following problem, taken from the work of Hector Levesque, a computer scientist at the University of Toronto. Try to answer it yourself before reading the solution. So Jack is, let me just get my little whiteboard up here. I've just got to flick back to my screen, just make sure you can see it. How are we doing there? All right, okay. All right, we can get there. All righty. Okay. So, the question is, Jack is looking at Anne, but Anne is looking at George. So, the question is then, is a married person looking at an unmarried person? All right, Jack is looking at Anne. Anne is looking at George. We know that Jack is married. Yeah? And what is it? George is not. George is not married. Sorry if you can't see that there. Just let me not married. Okay. Gotta make sure I can Okay. Jack is married. Anne is not. We don't know about Anne. Married or not married. George, not married. So, is a married person looking at an unmarried person? And you've got a multiple choice. A, yes. B, no. C, cannot be determined. Jack's married. Is a married person looking at an unmarried person? Or he's looking at Anne? We don't know. Not looking at George. George is unmarried. So if he was looking at George, apparently, according to the research, about 80% of people will go for C, cannot be determined. Yeah, and really, it's quite interesting because actually, what we can do is at least suppose one or two things about Anne, and then kind of ask ourselves if she's married. So if she was married. And if she was not married, we still arrive at the same answer. Okay, let me just go through this. Okay, more than 80% of people chose C, but the correct answer is A. Here is how to think it through logically. Anne is the only person whose marital status we don't know. Yeah, okay. You need to consider both possibilities, either married or unmarried, to determine whether you have enough information to draw a conclusion. If Anne is married, the answer is A. So is a married person looking at an unmarried person? Yeah, if Anne's married, yes, she is looking at an unmarried person, and that would be George, right? If she's married, okay? So if she's married, yes, she's looking at an unmarried person, yeah? Okay. if Anne is not married, well, now we got Jack, who is married, looking at an unmarried person. Okay, so that gives us A. Yeah? All right. Okay. It's cool. It's a fun little thing because, you would... unless you're prompted to think or to think of one or two or more possibilities for that scenario, you might just say, okay, we don't have enough information, we don't know, we can't tell. So that's just an example of that cognitive, what do they call it? Laziness. I can't remember the term they used, but it's that kind of, you just, and so, this is just that, if you really think about it and you, okay, and you set your mind to it, then okay, you can come up with this answer. If you don't really apply yourself to it, you just, okay, you've got that option, I'll go with that one. Yeah, easy decision. So of course that that fits in with when you're given the answers as to where you live. We live on a globe, and can't be anything else because you've been told it's this and this and this and this. You put those together, and it must be that, mustn't it? There's no, well, what if it's not like that? What if gravity isn't the way they've explained it? Or what if stars aren't, or the sun isn't that, or water doesn't do that, and so on, right? You have to be able to really think outside of the programming, outside of that we're given those answers, we're given it from an early age, and then it's built upon those foundations are put up at the model, and then the math, and then first you have gravity, but then it isn't, and then it is, and then it's something, and it's not, and then it's relativity, and yeah. So but it's always there. You're still thinking of terms of a globe, and it's funny when a lot of people will say, every scientist, all these thousands of scientists, they wouldn't, they would have noticed, they would have worked it out, and it's like, well, most scientists don't have to worry about the shape of the Earth. They might be a marine biologist, or they might be they're messing around in a chemical lab and doing monkeypox or whatever it might be. These things have nothing to do with the shape of the Earth, and again, we've got all these different disciplines which can be brought together in amazing ways, but often aren't. You still have a separation between the biologists, the chemists, and the physicists. They often don't cross paths. Of course, the physicist loves the mathematicians, or the other way around. The theoretical physicists are basically creating these mathematical models, and that's their thing. But it gets totally abstract, yeah. But as we talked about earlier, they might not recognize real world phenomena. Okay, so I can't remember how far we got through that, but we kind of just did it. Okay, so most people can carry out fully disjunctive reasoning when they are explicitly told that it is necessary, as when there is no option like cannot be determined available. But most do not automatically do so, and the tendency to do so is only weakly correlated with intelligence. Okay, so this is this kind of thing, just being able to think a little bit beyond what we're told, or to kind of think about the other possible information, even though we don't have it available, is not necessarily something that you just because you're intelligent and you're smart and you've got a high IQ, you might not see that missing thing. You might not see that there's a big gap in the whole kind of model there. Yeah. Like there's no curve. There's another one about a bat and a ball, and this is quite an interesting one, and it's been adapted. What's it, the question? A bat and a ball cost $1.10 in total. The bat costs $1 more than the ball. How much does the ball cost? And many people give the first response that comes to mind, 10 cents. But if they thought a little harder, they would realize that this cannot be right. The bat would then have to cost $1.10 for a total of $1.20. And I'm not going to bother with going through this, but IQ is no guarantee against this error. What's that? Kahneman and Frederick found that large numbers of highly select university students at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Princeton, and Harvard were cognitive misers, just like the rest of us, when given this and similar problems. So I should stick the link in the description. Sorry if I haven't done that so far, but you can go and I'll just add it later on. Okay, so yeah, it's I think it's quite relevant, yeah, because you will have this understanding that just you're stupid if you ignore the math. Yeah. All right, let's have a look. You know what I should have done? I should have made that larger. So let me just go through the chat a second. Isn't the spirit thinking? Asked the Bristolian. Going back to the spirit thing. Spirits probably, I would say, you probably act more on intuition, right? That's the thing. The thinking is the mind. That's the thing. We're so distracted with thinking, and that pollutes. You don't. When the spirit knows what to do, yeah. And the more we drive out that thinking, or the more we kind of put it aside and have that awareness of the thinking going on, the more the spirit comes in. Yeah, and the spirit is this. It's allowed to move more freely and do its thing. And that's more. The spirit doesn't have to think. The spirit knows what to do. Yeah, probably also knows that everything's going to be all right. Yeah. So no, I don't think the spirit does need to think. It just knows. One man, yes, to be aware of being aware is quite trippy, isn't it? Yeah. So V. Thomas, what's the difference between mind and spirit? Yeah, so the way I understand it, yeah, is the the monkey mind. The mind is always thinking, yeah. You're always it's usually, the mind is usually in the past or in the future. It's thought, it's remembering things, it's connected to the emotions. So the mind body is that kind of emotional connection with the mind, yeah. So it becomes, is it physiological? Is that the right word to use? Where whether if you're frightened and you're scared in a real situation, then of course you might be panicking, you're freaking out, and your body is also, your mind's doing that, and so is your body. Your heart rate is going up, you're breathing, and you're sweating, or whatever it might, all these things that happen when you're afraid. And this is a good example, I suppose, when people go on stage, for example, these people that do long running plays on Broadway or something for years on end, apparently they still get the same nerves and the increased heart rate and all these things, the clammy hands, every night before they go on stage, but they do get used to it. So the physical thing is still happening here, but the mind is less concerned about it. It's kind of, the body's doing its thing, the mind is elsewhere. Maybe that they're starting to enjoy it, they've got that familiarity with it, but physically they're still just as nervous as they were the first night, but the mind isn't being freaked out by that, yeah. And then so, I suppose yeah, it's the mind is thinking. It's always thinking. It's because it's always perception. It's all about perception, isn't it? The way we perceive things, the way we interpret things, right? You look at something and a word pops up. You say the word earth, and for most people, they get a picture of a globe from where that might have come. It could be the BBC TV, it could be a school book, it could be some CGI. Yeah, if you say earth, boom, a globe pops up in your mind. Yeah, so that has nothing to do with the spirit. The spirit, doesn't really care about those kinds of things. The spirit's operating on a a different level. But it's like it's eclipsed by the mind. The spirit can, the spirit's there, but if the mind is totally in control, and whatever, whether it's the material wealth and the desire, the anger at people, or conflict, or even love, all these things, they're all in the mind, right? Missing something, people, we cry a lot when a pet goes or something. Well, are we sad for the pet or sad for ourselves? Well, of course, it's our comfort thing, the thing we used to stroke and look at adoringly, and things like that. These are the things we often miss in a pet. Of course, you feel sorry for them, but a large part of the pain is our own suffering, because we're suffering that loss. Yeah, I do see a lot of, that's the thing, so the mind creates a lot of suffering, a huge amount of suffering. So when I see people behaving in a mean way, whether it's these people who think they're attacking you as a flat earther, they think they have some superior intelligence. That is actually that's their fear. That's their mind. That's their mind doing it. It's their programming. It's that self-assurance. It's that the ego. Yeah, so the mind and the ego are kind of best buddies, really, in that sense, or the ego is part of the mind, and it's that kind of the narcissistic part of the mind. Yeah, and when you examine yourself, we're all capable of evil things. We're all capable of lashing out and hating. We can all do it, but of course, if that observer, if that consciousness can see the mind doing these things, and then it's just like stopping the dog from going to eat the meat from the counter. It's going to do it if it thinks it can get away with it, but if it sees you, it's going to slink away. So that's that observing part of it. So the body, the mind, and the spirit, they're all doing their thing, but then you've got this consciousness and awareness that's going on as well. So then you're observing the mind, and then the mind and the ego is okay, I'm being watched here. I won't do that thing. So just that just the mind knowing it's being watched can kind of have a bit of a difference. Yeah. And so, I would say that the spirit is then completely separate from that. The spirit is that life force, that energy, that all-knowing thing, the connection to the eternal, however you want to perceive it. It's that, the God within you, yeah? The God having the life experience, yeah? In whether that's what is meant by the Holy Trinity or not, I'm not sure. But that's the way I see it, is that, so if you kind of consider, consciousness, that awareness, it's that the universe within us, the God within us, watching the whole thing play out. Yeah. We get back to the chat. Was that the Bristolian? The idiots that built our canal stupidly put 14 locks in it. Why? Everyone knows 14 go uphill. Yeah, and that's a perfect example, isn't it, of this you might be highly intelligent. You might be able to imagine and mathematically calculate the rate of curvature for water, but it's never existed in our practical lives. You can only go up a hill of water by using locks of level water. Yeah, and so it's funny, isn't it, that you don't need to be a mathematical genius to understand that that's our reality. That's how it is. Yeah. Zeus got instincts his gut. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because you feel it, you know it, that's it. And you don't necessarily know the answer, but you know if you've got to get out of somewhere. You know if you've got to do something. You know if you didn't do something when you should have done something. Yeah. So, all right. Oh, hello, Joe Mama. Thank you. It's nice to hear. Okay. Alrighty. Yeah, the chat seems to have kind of stopped. I'm not sure if anything's still happening there. If you're still hearing me, if it's still running. Yeah. Okay. Still seem to have a good connection. Yeah. So this is a big part of it, isn't it? It's just that understanding that these things are well known. These different forms of intelligence are well known, but they're not catered to, are they? We've got people, giving away their power, losing a lot of their power. Oh, good. Okay, thanks. Zeus Scott, do I miss the UK? I do, actually. Yeah, I do. I do miss it. It's drawing me back, but I've also kind of like, it's weird because today was wonderful in the garden. I've been digging over the past week or so a big pond now. I've got a big pond set up, and that's going to do our veg, and we're really kind of getting a little bit more self-sufficient again. We kind of go through this every time we get a new place. But yeah. I suppose there's this acceptance now, I suppose, that okay, that's a form of suffering, isn't it? To be wanting something so bad that you just end up you can trip over yourself and again not be focused on the here and now to be trying to get somewhere where you should be. I mean, I took two of my kids back recently, and that was for decades. That seemed like that would be impossible, but it happened. I actually managed to take two of my kids back to the UK, and so that's been nice, to do that. Yeah, I miss the weather, and I mean, obviously the one thing about I think this also relates to the topic as well. Is because we've got so many people just giving up, they're being apathetic, they're not taking part. What is fantastic about the UK or being a citizen of the UK is that I can, you can make a difference. The system is there. There is the the councils that democratic system is. That's the thing. If people are actively involved in it, we will have a fantastic society. It's just that the psychos and the narcissists have got in and they've got their power and they're grabbing everything, this, that, and they're plundering and plunging everything, But that doesn't mean it's helpless. It's up to us to be actively involved and come together again as communities. So I think a lot of what I see happening here. It's not that long ago that ties were still very much, community people, just in what would be our generation, my generation. If I'd grown up here in Thailand, my generation would still be very much family oriented, village oriented. It's everything's there a community thing. That, and this is it. There are so many grassroots movements in the UK. There are so many people waking up. There's a system there to help you as long as you use it and you put some energy into it. That's it. We've all got to work. Like we were talking about earlier, it's like, if you want these changes, we can make these changes happen. And I feel this kind of urge to do more than what I'm doing now from this neck of the woods. I mean, I've learned so much from my time here, but yeah, I want a long answer to your question, Zoo Scott. I want to get back and I want to be more involved. I want to do more and not have to worry about, the cultural things and the fact that I'm here, I'm still a foreigner in a foreign land. So there's a limit to what I can do. I can't be necessarily politically active, and I can't be too opinionated. That's something that you have the privilege of doing in the UK. And again, it's not about joining protests so much and stuff like that. Fantastic to see so many people coming together at a time, but I think that time has passed now, isn't it? Where now we've got people really, building these communities. They're coming together, and there is a lot of freedom. There is a lot of freedom, and one of the problems with the internet actually is you've got a lot of people that. I know that's how it works because I was in the media for years. But obviously, bad news is good news. That's the stories that sell. So you have a lot of people kind of pushing the negative aspects, and don't let these guys wear you down because they will. And it's just like sometimes you just got to leave them be. Leave them alone. They've done their they get into their groove of okay, this works. And negativity's it's infectious. It's as infectious as positivity, right? So positivity is a lot more productive. Yeah. So I'd love to take back to the UK some of the cultural things and stuff I've learned here, and just when the way people survive here and live off the land, they really do live off the land, and you can do that anywhere actually. I mean, obviously there's some crazy places where it's just too cold and barren to grow much, right? But I think somewhere like the UK, it's got, you're probably having lovely weather right now. It's what is it, a scorcher? It's 30 degrees or something. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, hello Nathan. Good to see you, my man. Yeah. Good video by Brian's Logic just today. Actually, I watched all that. That's really important. And yeah, I think it's important to collaborate on some of these things, breaking down the globe. And how navigation is done on flat Earth, how it's turned into degrees. It's so simple. Really, is so simple. Yeah. And there's a lot of work to be done there, just to kind of that's it. It's important. It's important to kind of like get people thinking about stuff in a way that feels natural to them, in a simplified way. Yeah. No One's Flower. Hello, Christopher Fournier. Greetings from Switzerland. Hello. Christophe, I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. Christophe. Thank you. Lovely to see you. V. Thomas, not all globers attack flag. That's true, V. Thomas. Yeah, I mean, obviously there's people that just enjoy the debate. There really are. And it's a shame, isn't it? When people get so... hateful and all that stuff, and that's the thing. That's such an immature level. When people are making these accusations and calling you this or that, and it's just silly. It's childish. Yeah, it just shows that to me. That's just like that's a very embryonic, childish stage. You've got this. Still got a long way to go to make that, to be on that kind of path where you can recognize what your thoughts and your beliefs are doing to you and how they're affecting you and others. I mean, why be hateful? Yeah. The only reason that's a defense thing, isn't it? If you're a glober hating on flat earthers, or even if you're a flat earther hating on other flat earthers, it's kind of, it's what for? We're all in this together. No one's, we're all clueless, really. And there has to be a point where, anyone who's kind of intellectually honest and doesn't really have too much ego involved in it will just accept that there's a limit to what we know. It's great to do some exploration and thought experiments and things like that, but nobody knows. Nobody's an authority on that. So I think it's very easy to get trapped in kind of assuming that certain people think in certain ways, and then kind of like arguments can springboard off these assumptions, and it's just like, not my bag. Yeah, yeah. Debate's healthy. It's cool. Yeah, and it will always be the case that you'll always come across people that have different, ideas, and it's not until you really take the time to stop and think about yourself and that person that you get a perspective. And spending time in another culture is really good for that, because you have to start reflecting, right? Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. It's wow. It's already midnight for me here, and it's been fun. It's been fun to catch up. Hope you've enjoyed the little foray there, and much work to be done still. So that's fantastic. I think there's so much we can do together, and just keep on rolling that snowball. And one thing you can always guarantee is change. You can change people's minds, and that's not to make them believe in someone else, but just allow them to flower and bloom and flourish as who they're meant to be, and the world will be a lot better place, probably. So I'm going to leave it at that, yeah, and wish you all a peaceful weekend and a happy week, and we'll catch up soon, yeah. So take care, and see you around next week, I expect. Okay.